Hello and welcome. I'm Debbie Atek. I'm a Bering Straits Native Corporation shareholder and a director on the board. Millions of federal dollars have been allocated for much needed infrastructure in the state of Alaska, and I'm interested in tracking what projects get funded and what opportunities will become available for Alaska Native individuals and communities. Today, I'll be talking to Ruth Wolfe, who is an enrolled member of the Umkmut Tribal Village Association and shareholder in both the Bristol Bay Native Corporation and Chalista. Ruth is deeply rooted in her heritage and has a passion for Indigenous advocacy. She's dedicated her career to cultivating sustained growth for the next generation. Ruth is currently a rural business advisor, providing financial analysis, marketing strategies, and research to small businesses. Welcome, Ruth. I'm so happy to finally meet you.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm so happy to be here as well to talk about everything small business and rural. I'm loving my new job here at the SBDC, at the Small Business Development Center. And
let's talk about that. Let's just jump right into that. How long have you been there and what is your role there?
Yeah. So it's been less than a year that I've been here at the Small Business Development Center, and we're a nonprofit, and I am a business advisor for entrepreneurs who want to start a small business in rural Alaska. So we have a goal of informing everybody in the community of all of the free resources that we provide, everything from new business owners who need help with business plans, existing business owners who want to expand their business by increasing their cash flow. We help entrepreneurs get ready to export to other countries if they'd like to do that, or people who are ready to sell their business and people who are interested in purchasing those existing businesses.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't realize that that was included in the Small Business Development Center. So one of the things that you didn't mention, and I was reading about recently, is that under the SBDC, there's a program for investment, right? Is that something that you can talk about that? And what kind of businesses that group is known as SSBCI. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, SSBCI. And it's a new program. I'm a lot more familiar with the SSBCI program than the infrastructure dollars, but they're housed from the US Treasury. And it's basically the state small business credit initiative. And so recently, the Rescue American Plan Act authorized whole bunch of billions of dollars to support small businesses. And Alaska gets a chunk of that money to help invest with capital for small businesses, empower them to gain investment for job creating opportunities because of how the pandemic really impacted small businesses. This is a plan to help boost that economic development, especially in rural areas and those of whom are like tribal governments and business owners who have a lack of those capital available.
Right. I think that's awesome that the Small Business Administration has included this. And I think that your organization and your position in particular is really perfectly positioned to support small businesses and local communities. And I know that you just said that you're not as familiar with the large infrastructure projects, but you've been on the ground already in my region, the Bering Straits region, and you've been out to some of the villages. Can you tell me what villages you visited and maybe what kinds of projects you saw? And maybe they aren't necessarily related to an infrastructure project like the Nome Port expansion project. But I have to assume that there's people in the communities that are starting to think about what might need to be like created as a small business or could be created. Like what kind of entrepreneurial things were you seeing out there?
I had so much fun. I visited 4 communities plus Nome, so I would say 5. I love the Bering Straits region. It's so beautiful there. I went out to Diomede, which is a small little island off the coast of Western Alaska, really close to Russia. And I've been to White Mountain and Savunga and Gamble, and I was able to host a starting a business workshop at these 4 communities. And it was it was such a great turnout. It was amazing to help boost that entrepreneurial spirit in rural Alaska. And as a SBDC as a whole, we've been to over 100 rural communities in Alaska.
Oh, that's awesome.
This workshop in person. So not just virtually, but actually going to these small villages in person to teach these workshops. And it's basically a way to encourage entrepreneurs to create small businesses in rural Alaska. And there's so many great ways to do that. There's you could be a hairdresser in your home for hair or skin or eyebrows. Maybe be a nail technician or an esthetician to do eyelashes. That's very popular right now. Maybe you could be a barber who specializes in shades, and you can do that in your kitchen or in your home. Maybe you want to do a snack shop in your Latuhaq or your Arctic entry. That's really popular in rural Alaska. Or you could do a 4-wheeler or snow machine part shop in your garage or in your home,
right,
to help to sell parts. I mean, and then the majority of the businesses that I help with include the art, sewing, beading industry. And so much of that industry, you really can utilize social media such as Facebook and Instagram and the internet. And it's so amazing now that we have broadband internet connection and Starlink. That is some new technology to really gain that momentum for e-commerce around the country and around the world. And it could be a really big impact too for somebody who's interested in exporting or importing goods out of Alaska.
I wanted to ask you about that in particular, because one of the things that I see concerns, people share their concerns about the risk of other countries duplicating intellectual property, right? So for instance, I know you're wearing a beautiful pair of earrings that were handmade by an artist, and I'm wearing a pair of earrings that I love. They're one of a kind. When you talk about getting people who are artists like that online and getting them to increase their sales, how do you talk to them about being able to protect their intellectual property? Or do you talk about that, and also possibly about like increasing the production, because these are handcrafted and they do take time? So you talk to them about the possibility of having some parts pre-made and then assembled. I mean, these are traditional arts that we both are wearing. Is it something that you have explored at all with these workshops?
Yeah, and something that I did mention in the starting business workshops are the prevalence of more fake mass-produced items that are being created in factories that are being marketed as native regalia, native art. And the SBDC has partnered with Silverhand to make sure your Alaska Native artwork and your jewelry is marked as authentic and made by a true Indigenous artist. This is something that we're really excited about to tell people at AFN, which is next week. SBDC is going to have a booth there to tell more people about how to protect your intellectual property, how you can trademark certain branding, how you can get things copyrighted.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's something that we're talking about now as certain countries are flooding the market and making it so that our Indigenous artists aren't able to sell their wares at top price because they're being downgraded with all these mass-produced items that flood the industry. So thank you for mentioning that. I really hope that people will understand that Silverhand is a additional application that you can apply with for the state. It does have a fee, but once you do complete that Silverhand application, you show your tribal ID card or your certificate of your tribe, and they will give you these insignias that you can attach to your art, and that way people can know that they are buying from a true Indigenous artist.
I think that's so great. What about some of the other regions where you've been? You mentioned that you had been to over 100 communities so far. So what's happening in some of the other communities that you've been to, and
Yeah, as the
what kinds of
SBDC as a whole for rural, we have been to 100. I myself have only been to those 5 communities so far, but we have been in talks with other chambers across Alaska and other Native corporations to hopefully have some upcoming travel across Alaska. So it's something that we are gaining traction on, and you can go to our website and you can see some of our photos of some past villages and places we've been to. I know Kodiak, Hoona, Ketchikan, Barrow, or Utqiagvik. That is another community that we have done workshops at. And I think it's so great to meet people where they're at,
mm-hmm.
and gain that trust in person before then moving on to help them online virtually. So you have personal connection, you know who they are, you know that they're a trusted person who can help you, and then we'll continue to work together either by the telephone or by Google, which I like to use is Google Meet or Zoom. And that's something that has really been that silver lining after COVID, being able to attend everything virtually and do work on things from home.
It really has. I mean, it's been, I think, a big help, certainly for business, but also for cultural reasons, for people to collaborate by distance, to take courses, for telehealth. So as we get more and more high-speed internet into our rural communities, people are being brought online. And ultimately, my goal, I would love to see, it's not my goal, but I would love to see people who are in rural parts of the state of Alaska who can use, who are coders or maybe who are media and content creators. You know, Byron Nikolai, he really created just a one-person channel on YouTube. And that was, I'm pretty sure he did that before there was high-speed internet where he was living. I'm not sure if he's from Bethel. Do you know what region he's from?
Yeah, he's from my region, the Chillister region. Yeah, he's amazing.
So once we have high-speed internet, these kids are going to be able to do amazing things. They're going to be able to create, I think, music content. I mean, Byron is obviously music, but also there's other content, films, podcasts. Coffee and Quack is a popular podcast, but I foresee that there'll be other podcasts and other content created that is niche and that is that will have followers around the Inuit circumpolar region. And I'm super excited about that. I feel like we're going to finally have that equity. They talk about the equity divide in digital. So it'll be nice to be able to have that one of these days as it gets rolled out. I feel like it's going to take some time, but people are obviously ready for that.
Yeah, I totally saw that in the Bering Straits region, especially in Nome too. Even though that fiber network was broken at the time, people were utilizing Starlink and still being able to complete all of their e-commerce there. And when I was in Nome, you'd mentioned the deep water, the barges and the infrastructure there. They were working on that currently, and all of the businesses there were getting ready for that influx of cruise ship travelers. And
Exactly.
I was walking around Nome, and you couldn't believe the amount of tourists that were walking around with me. And it didn't matter that there wasn't any 5G on their phones. Everybody was just so excited to, go to the restaurants there, purchase the ivory earrings and bracelets there. And I can see a lot of new businesses coming through with that deep water barge.
Oh, I can too. I think during the development of it, I think there's a lot of opportunities to support the people who are working, because there will be an increase in people who are working there. I know that there's going to be local hire, but there are going to be more jobs that will need to be filled than are people there that can do them. So there'll be more people there, and there are going to be things that people want. And whenever you see a need and you can fill it and you can mark it up, that's a business. So that's where I feel like you, and I said this earlier, I think that you and your role as the rural advisor working at the SBDC, you're just perfectly positioned to help the people in the communities to say, well, we're going to have 1,000 people a day visiting Nome during these days. And that's something we should actually, like, as I think kind of a community looking ahead, we should be looking at, like, well, how many people are going to be on the ground every day during what, from when to when, what's the season? Because I did an interview with Joy Baker from the Port of Nome. They have the bookings already. So we know we should be using those numbers. I'm not telling you how to do your job, but we should be using those numbers, right? To say, all right, if you're interested in doing food services like a taco truck or something, when the cruise ships come in and people want to get off the ground, they might want to try salmon tacos, or they might want to try moose burgers. I don't know how they would have to get those approved by the USDA, but yeah.
It's needed. As more people come in, they want more places to eat and more places to stay. And even during the Iditarod, it's gaining such traction worldwide. Tracking, there are places across the world who want to come and experience the Iditarod, and they need a place to stay. They need a place to eat. So more people are needing to get some more B&Bs or restaurants, and bring back little gifts for their family members, little authentic, native regalia. And I think it's something that we are envisioning in the next 10 years, especially as the Arctic is going to be melting in the summer times. More and more of the cruise ships are going to be going through the Arctic. More and more barges are going to be going through the Arctic. And that is going to be able to have a straight shot to Europe, to Canada, and to the other places and other countries in the world, so that they don't have to go all the way through Panama Canal or all the way down to South America. That helps to decrease the barrels of oil used. It helps to decrease time and energy to travel on those big ships. So that might also help to decrease the shipping costs to rural Alaska, which is a huge need right now to ship goods up there. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's very expensive.
It really is, and it's been that way forever, and it's prohibitively expensive to build. So we have housing shortages, and so hopefully what you're talking about will lead to a decrease in the cost of building supplies, to drive down the cost per square foot for construction, so that we can work on providing more housing for locals, but also for people who are visiting the community, and we can make accommodations. So there's so much, I see so much activity coming up in that area. And I know it's not the only area where in the state where we're going to see more visitors, more, there's more attractions. For instance, the one that I love is in, from Juneau, you can take a ferry over to Icy Strait Point. Hunatotum Native Corporation developed this port of call, and they've developed a whole island that used to be a fishery. A canning company was there, and it had been closed, and now it's been remodeled, and it's a whole destination with a zip line, with ATVs that you can drive around. I think there's a cultural component. There's a beautiful stage where there can be demonstrations of, I'm assuming, dancing and singing. And that to me is a great model for cultural tourism. I go back to the first time that I went to Hawaii, and I was able to visit the Polynesian Center there to see how they do cultural tourism. And I've been looking forward to us having that here in the state of Alaska, so that it's real, that we have the real people and not something that's for tourists.
Yeah, and that's a great example too for Hawaii and the state small business credit initiative too, since a lot of that funding, it really is geared towards investing in those really small disadvantaged communities and individuals and very small businesses. I think those are really great examples of previous programs or previous businesses that are a little bit more higher risk or more geared towards startups, when lenders weren't really wanting to lend towards those startups or towards, commercial fishermen's or tourism or restaurants or similar business sectors that are a little bit more higher risk, who individuals may not have the amount of 20 to 30% down or that credit of 700 or 800 to meet those loans. I think the SSBCI program is going to be a lot of help towards rural Alaska and towards those tribal entities that you were talking about.
I am, that's like music to my ears.
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, we're already doing some of the work with the lenders, and we're needing some more help in that, but it is something that we have our own little sector here in the SBDC program that have people to help with this funding that we're getting.
That's perfect. I want to just ask you one more question, and I had given you a heads up that I was going to ask you to think about this, and that is, now we're at this point where the Alaska Native corporations, maybe not quite all of them, but most of them are 50 years old now, and some of them have just grown and grown, and some of them are still, developing their business development, or may not quite have started. But your generation should be the one that's driving progress with your vision. And what would you like to see in the next 50 years? The people who started ANCSA, who wrote the language, and were out visiting the legislators in DC. They had a vision. Now, what's your vision for 50 years from now?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all of the current leading administration of the corporations, all the elders that are still on the board seats. They are the true innovators. They're the true trailblazers, who some of them who were there during ANCSA, like you said. And yes, the average age for some of these executives and board members are in their 60s, and they're ready for a new generation of leaders. And my goal is to be one of those leaders So I think one of the ways as young leaders to prepare for this transition is to join these discussions and build up your professional portfolio. I'm currently a board of director for the Alaska Native Professionals Association. That's one of the ways I'm trying to build up my portfolio. And this organization, it's called AMPA. It's a group of Native leaders who aspire to not only grow personally, but professionally by building business relationships, by helping build skill sets such as public speaking, by doing volunteer organizations, going and doing events and holding speaker panels as well to teach ourselves and to learn more about what it takes to be a good leader. So
is that the organization that you hosted a fireside chat with Congresswoman Mary Peltola?
No, so unfortunately, that was not with AMPA, but I did that fireside chat with Sophie Minnick, CEO of Siri, and with Liz Medicine Crow, CEO of First Alaskans Institute.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And I think they really inspired me to gain the momentum of going to the annual board meetings of your corporation, being in the face of your board members so that they know to remember you, and also to apply to be a board member. Keep
That's
applying.
right.
Even if you get rejected first, second, maybe third time, just keep doing it. You're only going to grow and you're only going to get better and work on yourself. So that's what I'm going to do. And I hope that's some good tips for other young leaders who are
I think so. I think so. I like everything that you said, and it reflects my experience as someone who was probably very similar to where you're at in your career years ago, and thinking ahead and talking to my family, particularly one of my dad's siblings who worked for the Quirk organization up in Nome, the nonprofit that does a lot of tribal coalition work and providing social services in the Bering Straits region. She gave me some of those specific recommendations, which are to show up in the community, be present. She made sure there's people in my family who tell me to listen. I have this kind of inside joke with one family member who says to me, "Debbie, listen." And it goes well with what my Aunt Rose said, which was, you need to know what issues matter to your constituents, the people, your shareholders. If you're thinking about running for a Alaska Native corporation, you need to know what matters. And also, as our shareholders, the populations are shifting. They're not necessarily concentrated in the original homelands, but they are still concerned about that. So yes, I think you're doing all of the right things, and you'll be in a good position to run for one or more boards when you feel ready. And it may take more than one time. It's very competitive.
It is. But I think it's something that, those are good goals to have. And I think us as, Indigenous people, taking control of our future and really doing what matters to your community. I know for me, one of my near and dear desires is to help boost the rural economies, because they so really do need it. And I'm from a small village, like you had said previously, Nightmute, Alaska, which has less than 200 people now. And I like to go back home and go fishing and go see some of my late relatives. And I just see so much new development that can happen in my region and other regions too across Alaska, that will only grow how well we strive towards building that together. And it's not just going to be one or two people, it's going to take all of us. So
Yep, it really is. I think that is well said and a good place for us to stop. I hope to talk to you at AFN, which is coming up soon. And before we end, you had mentioned you listed some of the services that the Alaskan SBDC provide. Do you want to just tell us what the website is where people can go to find you and more information about services there?
Yeah. So you can go to the aksbdc.org website and you can go to the homepage and you can join some of the workshops that we have available on our website. Or if you'd like to do some of the free one-on-one confidential advising, you can also sign up on that website at the aksbdc.org website. So if anybody does have trouble signing up, we will have a booth at AFN next week. I'm so excited about that. We'll be there all 3 days. So come and meet me in person. I'd love to talk.
I love it. Ruth, thank you for coming and sitting down with me today. And we'll have this posted later on this afternoon on Facebook, and I hope to see you at AFN.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Have a good rest of your
Thank
day.
you. Bye-bye.